It's up. It's good. Kicker rankings for week 12. And if you like kicker rankings, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, as we are one of the only channels helping you put out the right kicker each and every week. And I need to apologize and wipe and lick my wounds. I was not high enough on Jason Meyers last week. I'll be honest, ladies and gentlemen. And some of you guys called me out in the comments. I agree. Did I correct myself fully this week? Not really. You will see where Jason Meyers has ended up in these rankings. But started off with S tier. We have Brandon Aubrey going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Over-under in this game is 50.5 points. And Philadelphia is a top 12 easiest matchup for kickers because they stall a lot of offenses in the red zone. Brandon Aubrey is a kicker that you want to start every week, and you guys know this. But absolutely electric. Kicker number 2, though, on the week is going to be Chris Boswell for the Pittsburgh Steelers. As the Pittsburgh Steelers are going up against the Chicago Bears, the over-under in this game is 44.5 points, and Chicago is kind of middle of the pack when it comes to giving up overall fantasy points to kickers, but Chris Boswell has been absolutely electric. Now, the one thing that I do want to highlight at this point in the year is it's like we saw a ton of gust, we saw a ton of wind in the Sunday Night Football game this last week, and honestly, weather's going to start to become a factor for a lot of these kickers that are playing outdoors. That is something to monitor, as you're probably not going to know the weather until about Saturday. So sometimes if you take these rankings, I'm recording them on Monday, I don't know what the weather is going to be like on Sunday. So you need to put that into perspective of, if you care about your kicker spot, check the weather the night before of that next game. Now, my kicker number 3, it's going to be Andy Borregales for the New England Patriots as he goes up against Cincinnati. Over-under right now is 50.5 points. With the kicker points allowed, it's a top 10 easy matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals are giving up a ton of points to kickers. This is going to be a high-scoring matchup as it is, because it is the New England Patriots versus Cincinnati Bengals. And so if you tuned into my defensive rankings video, you know that I think the New England Patriots defense is definitely a harder matchup for them than recently, but it is a good matchup. But for kickers, Andy Borregales, it's a top 10 matchup. Got to feel good about any of these kickers here in the S tier. Now move on in these rankings. It is going to be Jake Bates in the A tier going up against the Giants. The over-under is 49.5 points. And talking through the overall Giants, they are kind of middle of the road when it comes to letting kickers score fantasy football points on them. And so that, for me, makes it an exciting matchup for Jake Bates. You're also looking at the fact that this Detroit Lions team as a whole, both defense and offense, is going to want to kind of rebound after that Philadelphia Eagles game. So definitely want to be having and starting and feeling good about Jake Bates here as your number 4 overall kicker. At number 5, this is going to be Jason Meyers. I moved him up. Currently, the Tennessee Titans, if you're taking a look at them overall, seem to be like a top 25%, a top 10 team in helping and giving up points when it comes to the kickers. And so want to take a chance on them. The only issue that I have with Jason Meyers, more than this last week, is this, Seattle got stalled out by the Rams defense a ton. We saw a ton of bad field positioning. So Jason Meyers was able to kick a ton. I'm a little bit worried that they're going to score more, of course, touchdowns when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks versus Tennessee Titans. But still have to put Jason Meyers here after that amazing performance in week 11 for week 12. And then my last kicker, and this is somebody to monitor, is going to be Eddie Pinheiro. Had a massive day in week 11, but exited with a hamstring injury. So Eddie Pinheiro could be someone that we don't want to start because he's injured. But the Carolina Panthers as a whole, it's a defense that has given up a decent amount of points when it comes to kickers, but still kind of bottom 3/4 of the league. So I maybe wouldn't start Eddie Pinheiro if he's injured, of course. But if he's good to go, I think we're talking about Mr. Eddie, who is somebody earlier on in the season. It was Eddie and Spencer Schrader that you were considering both being top 4 kickers, and now both of them have kind of fallen a little bit out of grace. But Eddie Pinheiro had an absolutely great week 11, so you got to feel good about him as my kicker number 6. Now we move on to tier number B, and this is going to be kickers 7 through 10. We got Tyler Loop going up against the Jets in this matchup. And maybe I could have pushed Tyler Loop a little bit higher, because right now, if you look at kickers, they are averaging the most points going up against the Jets, because the Jets, even though their offense has struggled, their defense has held it down just enough. But for me, I still think this is somebody that I think that the Baltimore Ravens are going to score a ton of points, just because I believe that they're going to get their passing attack going. It was not necessarily going in week 11. And so with all of that in consideration, with the over-under being 44.5, Tyler Loop solidly here at kicker number 7. But you guys might argue that Tyler Loop is this week's Jason Meyers, so let me hear it in the comments. My kicker number 8 is going to be Jace McLaughlin as they're going up against the Los Angeles Rams. The over-under is 49.5 points. It's a neutral game script environment for Chase McLaughlin. And this Rams team has just been so dominant. So dominant. But with them being dominant, they've also given up, about 8.4 fantasy points per game to kickers. So that is something to keep your eye on with Chase McLaughlin. I do think they're going to have to score touchdowns. I think that's my only thing with this matchup, even though the over-under so high. I think there might be a little bit safer floor for Chase McLaughlin, just not necessarily that overall ceiling. My next kicker at number 9 is going to be Cairo Santos versus Pittsburgh for the Chicago Bears. Over-under at this game is 44.5. And the Chicago Bears as a whole, or when we're taking a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've had a super dominant defense. But when you're considering what does this defense look like against kickers, they have given up 9.4 fantasy points per game to kickers because a lot of offenses stall out in the red zone. And so for me, Cairo Santos, maybe I should have pushed him higher, but he's my number 9 kicker overall this week. My number 10 overall kicker is going to be Cam Little when it comes to them going up and playing against the Arizona Cardinals. And the Arizona Cardinals right now are the number 2 defense against kickers. And so it's a very friendly matchup for our guy Cam Little, but can he get the volume? I just cannot seem to trust Trevor Lawrence. This offense moving the ball efficiently. Now, we just saw the 49ers absolutely put up crazy amounts of points against the Arizona Cardinals. So maybe Jacksonville, this is like a get-right game. Maybe Brian Thomas Jr. comes back. A lot of good jazz there. I think it's like we said, a top 10 matchup for Cam Little, but I need to see more out of Cam Little to push him any higher. Now, moving on to tier number C, we started off with Will Riker as they're going up against the Green Bay Packers. It's a neutral game script environment with the over-under being 42.5 total points. And the Green Bay Packers as a whole have kind of been a bottom half team when it comes to defenses against the kickers, only allowing 7.4 fantasy points per game. So, like I said, again, I'm not excited about Will Riker. I was a little bit excited about him last week, and he let me down, so I'm just kind of continuing to put him here as kicker number 11. My kicker number 12 is going to be Jake Elliott, who he had to kick some really hard kicks in this Sunday night matchup versus the Detroit Lions. There was a ton of wind. Over-under in this game is 50.5 points. There should be a lot of opportunity for scoring all the way around. And you're talking about the Dallas Cowboys as a whole defense who is pretty much in the top echelon, the top 7 defenses, giving up a ton of points to kickers, which is exciting if you're potentially throwing out Jake Elliott and you're like, Caleb, why is he kind of here in the middle of the pack? It's just because the volume hasn't been there. This Philadelphia Eagles team, when it gets to 4th and 2, 4th and 1, in the end zone, in the red zone, they're doing the tush push. And so Jake Elliott has just not had the same amount of opportunities as a lot of other kickers. My last kicker in this tier C is going to be Harrison Butker going up against Indianapolis. Over-under is 49.5 total points. And when you're considering this Indianapolis Colts team, they have given up one of the lowest amounts of points to kickers. They are either letting teams score touchdowns or they're getting stops. So that does not make me excited for Harrison Butker, especially after the Kansas City Chiefs really struggled to move the ball versus the Denver Broncos. Now, if you guys need some extra kickers here, we got the Harrison Mevis. Actually, fun fact, I lived in Warsaw, Indiana for the last few years, and Harrison Mevis actually was a kicker at Warsaw High School and then went off to kick at Missouri University and now is, of course, kicking with the Rams. We'll have to see if he's kicking again this week versus Tampa Bay, but he'd be my kicker number 14. And then kicker number 15 would be Michael Bagley versus the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as we are trying to provide an edge to you on both defense and kicker rankings each and every week. We appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.